TransAstra is a venture-funded startup company with contracts from NASA and the Space Force that is developing the technologies and systems to help humanity move into space. There's enough material in the solar system to build worlds in space to support a population of humans of up to 1 trillion people. And that's an unlimited future, and we are positive about that. And the way to make that an unlimited potential for our species is to learn to harvest the resources of the solar system. Hi, I'm Joel Sercel. I'm the founder and CEO of TransAstra. This is the Hive. This is our headquarters at TransAstra. So the engineers work in the office area. Through that window, you can see the laboratory area. That's where we have our 2 large vacuum tanks, our large light sources, which are solar simulators that simulate how the sunlight behaves in space. We have our fabrication facilities, our machine shop, a rapid prototyping lab, and we do the development of all our different hardware projects out in the lab. Homo sapiens are consummate survivors. We have wanderlust, we have curiosity, we grow, we expand, and now we cover the whole planet. And at each point, as our ancestors spread from one domain to another, they developed the technology to handle that new domain, from dugout canoes to sailboats to steam engines, and that allowed us to spread throughout the globe. And now we've kind of mastered the Earth, and there's nowhere else to go but up.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
There are so many doomers thinking that, the human race is on the edge of extinction, coming to an end. The last I checked, there were about 8 billion of us on the planet. And if you study history and you really look at what's happened over the last 100,000 years, in virtually any epoch in that 100,000 years, it's been better for people than it has been in the previous epoch. The fraction of people who live in wealth is the highest it's ever been. The fraction of people who live in poverty is the lowest it's ever been. Lifespan is the longest it's ever been. Access to clean water, clean food, shelter, and medicine is greater for a larger percent of the population than it's ever been. So the doomers who are looking at the current situation and projecting the demise of humanity are just not thinking clearly. So there's an urgency in our need to go into space, because every year that we don't see that opportunity and harness that opportunity is another year of young people being told about the gloom and doom of the future. People talking about the extinction of the species, and they have this word sustainable. And instead of sustainable meaning smarter, more efficient, using technology to solve problems, sustainable means do less, don't have children, don't strive for the future. And that's not good. So real sustainability comes from technological innovation, finding new resources, and being smarter about how you attack problems.
These pictures were taken in part due to the excellent estimates of exposure times by Carolyn. That's home. That's where we are. On it, everybody you love, everybody you know, everybody you've ever heard of lived out their days there. The aggregate of all our joy and suffering, thousands of confident ideologies, religions, economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there. This picture underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Thank you.
When I was a young man, Carl Sagan was a prodigious writer of really interesting books on science and the universe. And I had been a huge fan of his. And then I worked at JPL, and lo and behold, during my tenure at JPL, Carl Sagan came back to JPL and became a distinguished visiting scientist with his office just down the hall from me. And so it was a real thrill to meet him. And it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot, worked with a whole bunch of very talented people. But it kind of became clear to me after a while that JPL was an organization that used a lot of government money to do really interesting and exciting things in space, but it wasn't becoming more cost-effective, and it wasn't leading humanity to space in a sustainable way. So I wanted to get away from JPL and move into more of the private sector to try to help launch humanity into space. So I left JPL, started a laboratory at Caltech, had a wonderful experience there, but I was really kind of disappointed where the space program was going. I was doing consulting for Fortune 500 companies and for the Department of Defense and NASA and different people, just making a living, kind of enjoying my life. But I got this really interesting consulting gig to evaluate SpaceX's engineering processes and equipment, and it became very clear to me that it was going to work. The dream of space industrialization is going to happen. Low-cost access to space is going to make exciting things happen in space. What can I do to contribute to this? And I realized that we've known for decades that the greatest resource in the solar system for humanity's future is the asteroids. There's enough material in the asteroids to build worlds in space with 1,000 times the carrying capacity of the Earth. I was very excited about the prospect of the next big opportunity for humanity to go into space. And if we can learn to harness those resources, move manufacturing and other heavy industries into space, we can reduce stress on the biosphere, we can let people move into space, and we can go back to exponential growth and optimism for the future. So TransAstra is not the first company that's tried to develop the technology and systems to mine asteroids. Big revolutions in technology always involve false starts. You know, for example, before the iPhone, about every 2 years, Bill Gates at Microsoft would get up and make a big announcement about a convergence device that you could carry in your pocket and would have computing and everything you need, and it would be bigger than computers. And he was right, it was going to happen, but it never happened on his timeline. The iPhone happened when the technology was right and the right innovator, Steve Jobs, put all the pieces together. So the people who started companies before TransAstra that were focused on asteroid mining were right. They were just a little too early. They started off with plans to go mine asteroids using the sort of launch vehicles and spacecraft of the time, and it just didn't work economically because it was still too expensive to get into space, too expensive to get around in space, and there wasn't enough of a market to actually take the propellant that you'd harvest from asteroids and use it in space. And the economics of harnessing precious metals just don't work in, the year 2015. So let me talk about the 4 technologies. First, we have our Sutter telescope technology. With that, we find and characterize the asteroids, figure out which ones we want to go harness resources from. Then we take our asteroid mining honeybee vehicles, which are equipped with our omnivore propulsion system, carry the mining vehicle to the asteroid. Once we get to the asteroid, we capture it using our capture bag technology so that we can contain all the resources, make sure it doesn't come apart and float off into space. And then we use our material processing technology to process that material to create valuable products that we then bring back to Earth orbit to sell. The first missions will bring back upwards of 100 tons of volatile materials like water and other valuable chemicals. That's worth about $1 billion each. Later, we'll bring back thousands of tons of volatile propellants, multi-billion-dollar missions, and then after that, we'll be bringing back precious metals and strategic materials. So we view this as a multi-trillion-dollar market eventually. What are we working on today? We have active multi-million-dollar contracts in our telescope technology and our capture bag technology. We're expecting new contracts associated with our propulsion technology. And when we put that all together with past work we've done on materials processing with our processing technology, we think it's at least a few years until we'll be able to do full-scale asteroid mining. We don't make projections of when asteroid mining is going to happen, but it could be as few as a few years or as much as several. The adventure of settling space and making humanity what I call an exoplanetary species started over 100 years ago with a school teacher in Russia named Tsiolkovsky, who worked out the mathematics of space exploration. And he was the first one who talked about going to asteroids and harnessing their resources. Then there have been other pioneers like Oberth and Goddard, Neil Armstrong, the people of Apollo. Now we have a new generation of entrepreneurs that are building companies and creating wealth and making the world better by using space in fundamentally new ways. So it's a multi-generational history, but the adventure is just getting started. And so my children and their children, your children, each generation will have it better, and we'll be pursuing this incredible adventure of humanity's journey into space. I can see a future of at least 1,000 years of growing throughout the solar system. After that is the launch into interstellar space and the spread of this wonderful germ of biology that we only know that exists in one place in the universe. As Carl Sagan said, we are the way for the universe to know itself. Without us, the universe is darkness without knowledge or awareness. So my call to action for young people is to believe in a positive future. And on the basis of that, get to work. Get to work on the adventure of building a future for humanity. Yes, it's science, technology, engineering, it's STEM, but it's also the arts, it's communication. The adventure of space exploration and settlement requires everybody to pull together to make it happen.